If you are new to our webinar, I'm Jackie Spainhauer, and I am a Community Development Specialist for the University of Missouri Extension, and I work out of Worth County, which makes this even a cooler webinar today because we are in my region of Northwest Missouri, working with Maryville. I just want to quickly let you know that we are excited for our conference, our CE conference coming up in September of this year. We've got several people from Excelsior Springs on the call, and they are our host September 30th through October 2nd. And they have some awesome speakers that they're working on. They have some fun activities. And so registration for our CEC conference is going to open up in probably early April. So definitely make sure that you sign up, register. We'll get that link out to our email list. So if you're registered, you're here, you're going to get that link. And speaking of conferences, today we are super excited to do a soft announcement for our 2026 conference location. We are going to be in Maryville in 2026, and they were our second folks that decided that they wanted to host a conference for us in their community. And they are going to be kind of learning the ropes along with Excelsior Springs so that they're not coming in, okay, it's time to plan a conference in less than 9 months. So we're going to have them come alongside of us with Excelsior Springs. Super excited to have you in my neck of the woods in Northwest Missouri. To see all the great things that the City of Maryville has done over the last several years. And so with that, we're going to get started with this webinar today. We have several people with us from the city, the university, and from the Downtown Maryville organization. We have Greg McDanel, who is the city manager for the City of Maryville. We have Dr. Matt Baker, who is the Vice President of Student Affairs for Northwest Missouri State University. And we have DeAnn Davison. She is co-job, the Director of Tourism for the City of Maryville, and then also the Executive Director for Downtown Maryville. And they are spotlighted, hopefully, here on the call. And I have personally lived and worked in Maryville off and on for about 20 plus years. And it has been so awesome to watch the projects unfold, not just in the downtown, but the entire community. So even though the CEC and this program, we focus on the downtown, we might hear a few other things that are going on in the City of Maryville today. So with that, Greg, the floor is yours, and you can take the spotlight.
All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. And again, my name is Greg McDanel, and this presentation is called Bridging Community and Campus for Impact. Over the last decade, the City of Maryville and Northwest Missouri State University have just really blossomed into an ongoing partnership for a variety of different projects, but just a new way of working together. Again, my name is Greg McDanel. I am a city manager certified by the ICMA. I'm a credential manager. I have been with Maryville for 13 years, and I am Maryville city manager for another 3 hours. So this is a pleasure to be able to talk about what we've been able to accomplish over the last decade or so on my way out of this community, this wonderful community that we're so excited that you're coming next year hosting the conference here. I'll ask Matt and DeAnn if they can go ahead and introduce themselves.
Sure. I'll jump in here. My name is Matt Baker. I am the Vice President of Student Affairs at Northwest. I've been at Northwest over 30 years. I've been in the Vice President's role for the past 14 years. I apologize if I cut in and out. I'm actually on my way to a hockey tournament with my son, and so I'm driving through Washington, Missouri on my way to Pacific, Missouri for the first round here in about an hour and a half. But I can't wait to share a little bit about what we've been able to do with the support of the Downtown Association, as well as the city and county management over the last 10 or 15 years. We've done a lot. We hope to do a lot. We will miss Greg greatly, but we are so proud of the work we've done to date, and we'll love to outline that for you.
And I am DeAnn Davison. I am the tourism director for the City of Maryville, and I also have a dual role. So I'm also the executive director of Downtown Maryville, which we are an affiliate Main Street organization. And so being part of the city and the downtown, just the tremendous growth that has happened in the last, specifically 10 to 15 years in the community is just tremendous. So Greg is going to lead us through some amazing stories of transformation and partnerships.
Yeah, and I promise not to bore you to death with the PowerPoint information. A lot of these slides are just going to be before and after pictures, things that we really are proud of, and hopefully you all will get to see next year when you're in our community. A little bit about Maryville. We're a community of about 10,000. Our daytime population swells to about 30,000. We have challenges with population numbers and census due to our university clientele. Our students, it's sometimes difficult to get the head count on the census, but we are the county seat of Nottoway County. Our customized trade area is about 55,000. So we pull a lot of small towns who shop for basic services, the local Walmarts, restaurants in our community. And Northwest Missouri State University is a four-year public institution. They have an enrollment of about a little over 9,000. Beautiful 86-acre campus that's also our Missouri State Arboretum. And I believe that was 2020 or 2019, their regional impact was about $618 million. And so they are a huge part of not only our community, but Northwest Missouri. And their beautiful campus, they keep it open to the public. And so it's a huge asset for our community to be able to, again, walk through the Missouri State Arboretum in their back door. I'm going to start talking placemaking through infrastructure. And one of our first partnerships since I got on board in 2012 was redeveloping the 4th Street corridor. And I'm going to talk about why the 4th Street corridor is so important to our community. But you can see from this map that 4th Street really connects downtown to Northwest Missouri State University. And what you're about to see, this is another angle. You can look in that photo very closely. You'll see thousands of people lining up for the homecoming parade in this photo, but it kind of will orient yourself how close it is. It's about 6 blocks from downtown, Northwest Missouri State University. So there's a lot of traffic back and forth on this corridor. It just really did not meet our standards for quality. And so, in fact, I believe at one point the university would actually bus recruits, faculty around the downtown because of how bad this corridor was. And this is what it looked like. Again, failing infrastructure, just not a great entryway to campus. You can see there's a business off to the right that was out of business. You can see a billboard off to the left, which definitely did not meet code. And so we really worked hard to develop a plan to potentially revitalize that corridor. Again, 6 blocks downtown to campus, failing infrastructure, aesthetically unappealing. The importance of that corridor, and I'm going to ask Matt to jump in here a little bit from the university's perspective, but from the city's perspective, safety of our citizens and our students, accessibility. There was no ADA compliance along the corridor, but we really knew that if we could connect campus and community, campus and downtown specifically, that we would have long-term economic development success in our downtown. And from a recruitment and retention, I know Matt will probably talk a little bit about that, but community pride. We wanted this corridor to represent our physical representation of our partnership with Northwest Missouri State. Matt, can you expand on that from the university's perspective? Absolutely.
I want to just touch on something Greg said and emphasize how accurate he was. Our downtown main square and as the 4th Street corridor, which is our main entrance to campus, were so dilapidated and so just blighted that we started using alternative routes past our high school, newer roads. For a good decade, we didn't bring new recruits or any incoming students who were touring down 4th if we could avoid it. What we found is that students that were coming from Omaha, Nebraska, Des Moines, the last impression before they got to campus was what they remembered. They thought the campus was great, but man, the community around it wasn't. And so it really had an impact on our enrollment and students who matriculated into our campus. If you're familiar with the higher education traumas or difficulties right now, it is about enrollment because of the population decline of high school graduates. And so this project really was the forefront of us showcasing the downtown square and the main entrance to our campus. I would also mention that the social life in Maryville occurs around the square. And so, starting at 8 o'clock on a Thursday, Friday, or Saturday night, you might see a lot of students walking towards the downtown, but it was not safe. It wasn't lighted, and there was really uneven sidewalks. And so it worked very, very well to change that and have a much better approach to our campus from 4th Street and through the main part of town.
Thank you, Matt. So what Matt is getting ready to allude to is the 4th Street Improvement Project. Again, a significant partnership between the City of Maryville and Northwest Missouri State University really started on the key conversations between Matt, myself, and his core group of leadership team at the university and city. And we did a walkthrough. I remember getting, one of the suggestions that comes from this project is get out of your car and see how the pedestrian feels about that corridor. If you're walking your infrastructure, sometimes the vantage point from a car can really hide a lot of things that when you're out walking are critical. And so we did that. We walked the corridor as a group, realizing for the first time, I think, for a lot of people in that group of how much improvements were needed to the corridor. And so we actually secured what I believe might be the first investment of university financial dollars off campus. The university led by paying for our engineering of that corridor. And so they really stepped up to the plate to get us started. To really develop a project that is a reimagined corridor with various project features from ADA compliance to placemaking, and just really rehabbing that corridor. It ended up being a $2 million streetscape project. We were able to work with, again, Northwest and do some combined grants. We got about $1 million in grants on the project. And then again, Northwest committed an additional $400,000 for certain elements of that project, again, helping us get to reality from what we thought was an incredible vision for our community. It was completed in 2015, and we're proud to say it did win a Great Places in Missouri award from the Missouri Planning Association. Matt, before we go on, would you mind just speaking briefly about, kind of that university's investment off campus?
No, you're absolutely right. This was the first investment that was in the community. And what I want to mention about that is about committed people, and it is about conversations, and it's not about hearing the first no. The first no was really just an opportunity to have an additional conversation. This was a little bit of a difficult concept for people to hear. They weren't sure this was the right thing to do. But again, Greg and I worked together, created a strategy, an internal strategy for me at Northwest to bring to the president, bring to our financial officers, and bring to our board to recognize that this wasn't just a city project. This was an investment for Northwest for our recruitment and our placemaking and our sense making. So we have done many more of these projects because that one worked. And so the takeaway for me was the first no isn't the final answer, as long as you stay with it and also find what the decision makers need to get to yes. And that's really what worked best for us. And then has blossomed into, additional partnerships since then.
Again, Matt, thank you. And I couldn't agree more. I think both of our organizations, the City of Maryville and Northwest Missouri State University, have developed a partnership where we look for ways to say yes before we say no. And I think that's really critical. And this project definitely started in that. You can see the mayor, president of the university, off to the right in that photo, and me about, looks like 3 decades younger than I am now. The article below is what really was special for us. I think it was a symbolic that the university and community had not done projects like this. And so to see a local citizen write an article like this, just an opinion piece in our local paper was really rewarding. And so to show you the improvements we've made, again, we go back to how blighted this corridor looks heading into our university, and what we were able to accomplish is tremendous. So this is really the gateway feature. So this signage right here, it's a lot of people look at this sometimes and think that's an area we could cut the project. This is one of the most important elements of our project, as it creates that gateway from the university downtown to the university. So it essentially moves the front door to campus about 5 blocks into downtown. And so on the back of this sign, you'll see here in a minute, it also says welcome to Downtown Maryville. So it was a way for us to physically symbolize or symbolic of our partnership, and then also a way to draw our students back and forth through downtown. A lot of improvements along the corridor. You can kind of see this is up closer towards the university. Again, you can see the welcome sign just off to the right of the university. This was the front door that Matt referenced earlier. You can see the failing infrastructure, and the painted on Bearcat paws is a great touch, but we knew we could achieve a lot more through this corridor. And so this is the end result of what that looks like today. You can see the university signage. The vertical elements on a project like this are critical. The ancillary lighting, through the corridor. We actually used a bunch of engineering principles that Northwest Missouri State University uses on their campus, and one of those is called CPTED. It's called Crime Prevention Through Environmental Design. And what that does is it really looks at how we can design infrastructure to improve safety of an area. And this was one of the CPTED principles used here was mirroring the campus lighting all the way into our downtown. So we wanted to achieve achieve a minimum of a 30-foot face recognition. So if two people are walking along the corridor, even at night, they would be able to see each other within 30 feet. So it was really important for us to create that safe corridor because a lot of our students and community, again, use this to go up to the downtown nightlife and partake in activities downtown. You can see off to the left, welcome to Downtown Maryville is on the back side of that sign. You can see we have some public art along the corridor, some cultural integration into our corridor. Off to the right, upper right, you can see again a Baskin-Robbins that was unfortunately out of business and a gas station. With this project, we were able to encourage active economic development, reuse of that property, and we now have a wonderful student body who is a local local sports, local university apparel shop for our community. Then we took it an extra step. One of the great things about the 4th Street corridor is placemaking. How do we create a sense of place for not only our students, but our community and faculty at Northwest Missouri State University? And so these are actually asphalt inlaid Bearcat paws into the ground. So this was unique for us. They actually are going to be on a schedule here to be replaced soon. But they've, again, a nice welcome addition to town or to the university versus those painted on paws we had before. And you can see this corridor is actively used for a variety of functions. This was after we won a playoff game at Northwest Missouri State University, football playoff game. They tore down the goalposts and walked them up through the corridor into downtown. And, you know, as a community, we encouraged that. We had obviously law enforcement presence to make sure things were safe and things didn't get too out of hand. But these students really embraced that corridor and the community spirit, bringing up the goalpost through the corridor. And you can see, again, a final shot of Northwest Missouri State University. It is a cultural and community icon for us now. We have people that get wedding pictures under this. Students will be under this all the time, taking photos when they arrive for a visit or when they get here to campus. Maybe I can just also, why tie up 4th Street before we move on to the next project. Maybe, DeAnn, could you speak briefly about 4th Street's impact into downtown and kind of where we were before this project and kind of where we're at right now?
Yeah, absolutely. You can't stress enough how being aesthetically pleasing is a recruitment factor for businesses, because if they come to a community and they see that, you know, the infrastructure is well taken care of, then they can see themselves more and more in those spaces. So in 2014, we were looking at somewhere between like a 20 to 30% occupancy rates. So we had a lot of empty buildings. And so then when you have empty buildings, then you are concerned about maintenance issues. And, you know, then unfortunately, a lot of those buildings can come down when they aren't occupied. So, and, you know, now in, 2024, 2025, we're looking at, a 75 to 80% vacancy rate. So the change and I can't think of the word, but just the commitment to making something beautiful. It's not just about having pretty things. There is definitely an economic impact that occurs when you invest in your infrastructure.
Yeah. And as important as this project was to Northwest Missouri State University, is invaluable to our downtown. Again, she mentioned we were 20 to 30% occupancy in downtown, and now we're at 75 to 80%. And that's not necessarily tied to this project, but it is a part of that momentum that we were trying to build in our downtown and our infrastructure surrounding downtown.
Hey, Greg, can I add one quick thing?
Absolutely.
So I just want to comment, and when you saw in some of those pictures, a lot of the houses along there have become rental houses for college students. And prior to this project, they could have been qualified as slumlord properties. Some of our consultants and engineers and some of our hope and belief system was that the property owners would improve those if the streetscape was improved. And it absolutely has come to fruition. So once we did the heavy lifting of making the street, the sidewalk, the lighting, the infrastructure better, property owners came along and painted and fixed and really did a lot of really viable or very important repairs. So yes, we did the initial part, but homeowners came along and did their part after us. And I think it's important to note, kind of, if you build it, they will come. And that really did come true.
It's a great point, Matt. And it's kind of the broken window theory in reverse, right? So it's if one person takes care of their property, the next property, it just has a continuous improvement mindset that's what those property owners have absorbed. So thank you, Matt, for adding that. This project itself became a catalyst for ongoing partnerships with Northwest Missouri State University. And one of the most important ones we have done, in my opinion, is activating student partnerships through actually working with our students at Northwest Missouri State University. And we did that through rebranding of Mazingo Lake Recreation Park. And so probably many of you have heard of Mazingo Lake Recreation Park, but it's a city-owned and operated 1,000-acre lake, or with a 3,000-acre park with a 1,000-acre lake. It is our water supply to the community, but it also has a variety of outdoor recreation. And for a long time before this process with Northwest, it was called the Hidden Gem. And while that's great, we love to have a hidden gem. We don't want it to be hidden. We want to promote it. We want to let DeAnn run with it on tourism. We want to bring in the economic impacts that a place like this can bring to our community. It had a series of operational challenges that we were working on behind the scenes, but it also had sales tax support. So this is a sales tax supported operation. So our community is very invested in advancing Mazingo Lake Recreation Park as a tourism destination for our community and region. City Council had very high aspirations. Unfortunately, in 2014, we had no brand or identity for Mazingo, and I'll show you what I mean by that. These are prior branding logos for Mazingo Lake Recreation Park. And I'm sad to say that all of these were used at one time. This isn't a history of the logos. They were used in some format or another at the same time. And so we really focused on, if we want to meet those city council aspirations, how do we create a brand that means what it should mean to our community. And so this was my favorite, by the way. The clip art with the guy in the boat is a good one that we were using in 2014. We actually worked with a class at Northwest Missouri State University. So through our Town Gown partnership, we were introduced to the Northwest Advanced Advertising Strategies class. It was a 2-semester partnership. It actually started as a 1-semester partnership, but then we wanted to bring them back in that second semester and actually have them implement their plan. And so it was a creative approach to addressing a municipal challenge while activating student partnerships and letting them get that real world experience. So they assisted with marketing strategies, brand development, and we actually gave them a budget that second semester, and we actually had them implement that. So they were running ads for us. They were running a rebrand kickoff festival at our park. And so the student presentations along the way, we treated this class like a marketing firm. So they really met with advisory boards. They made presentations to city council. They had comments with the media. And so we were actively involved in all those meetings. I think that's the assistant city manager and myself there in the back of our heads, at least in that bottom picture. But they would pitch us concepts. We would work with them like a firm we hired. It was a great experience. And then the brand relaunch was a success. So we took this logo through again a 2-semester partnership and made more of a professional representation of our park. And so this is our current branding that we're using for the park and have been for almost the last 10 years. They really took it a step further. They did so many creative things. You can see the trade show booth we were able to do down there. You can see the signage that's at the park off to the right. But the top two are really interesting. When we were doing the rebranding and getting our logo out there, they just started putting things in grocery stores, right? They worked with our local Hy-Vee and put these in there just to continue to build some excitement on the rebranding that, again, our community has really embraced. And that, again, is another momentum piece that has led to tremendous success in our community. Up to the left, you can see those were concept drawings for an event center and our hotel that we had aspirations to do. You can see on the right, that's Tom Watson, legendary golfer, who ultimately ended up building a 9-hole junior course here on our golf course, named the Watson 9. So we were actually able to secure our conference center. We had a public vote for sales tax support, and that vote carried by 5 votes. So we were able to build the picture off to the right because of 5 votes. And one part of this critical partnership is a lot of these students re-engaged with us and helped us go get students registered on campus to be a part of the process and would educate why the event center at Mazingo it was important for our community. Before I move on, Matt, DeAnn, you have anything to say from tourism perspective? I know Northwest, again, partnerships are critical.
I just, from a tourism aspect, you can't stress enough how important it is to have a cohesive project. So even something like, Mazingo Lake Recreation Park, it was also called Recreation Area. So when someone isn't able, in this day and age when first inclination is to Google, and when you're getting different names of things, it just creates confusion in the marketplace. So to have that unity and that credibility in the marketplace and just gives an edge to our competitors, so when they see that logo they automatically identify it with us and the great course and great amenities that we have out of Mazingo.
Yeah, the only thing I would add, not as much from the tourism, but just the trust building and relationship building comes from the idea that our students at Northwest are college students, generally here about 4 years, but they are ingratiated into the community. For many, many years, and I think this kind of dropped off at COVID, we had a ex officio member of our city council. And I think that just built trust between students who were in those advertising classes, and that trust building and that ongoing experience. It wasn't pat the students on the head. It was all part of the student experience at Northwest, and they were a critical part of it. So I think that's worthy of mentioning.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. And I couldn't agree more. We've had a tremendous amount of student partnerships and internships and along the way. This one just really highlighted how powerful rebranding that lake was and what it's kind of helped us do as a community moving our recreation park forward. The next project we're going to talk about briefly is the Hughes Fieldhouse. And so this is an indoor complex on the campus of Northwest Missouri State University. I'm going to let Matt talk about this here in just a minute. But the Hughes Fieldhouse is a 137,000 square foot indoor complex. And so this was really high on the university's priority list for a variety of reasons that Matt will discuss. But we really, again, asked the question, how do we partner? Not should we partner? We know there's community benefits, not only to having, accelerating Northwest Missouri State University is a premier destination with the facilities and assets that they need, but also to talk about community health and wellness, tourism and economic development in our community. And so we were really focused on, if we build this project, how can we be a partner, and how can we provide the community use of this building? And so at the time, our community didn't have a transient guest tax, which is also known as a bed tax, hotel tax. I feel like we're one of the last ones to ever have one, but this community actually voted no in 2004 by 30 votes. And so there hadn't been a real tangible effort to go ahead and get a bed tax approved in our community until this project, again, became a catalyst with the concept of maybe the city could partner if the citizens approved the transient guest tax. And so our final partnership on that was that we would agree that if the citizens passed it, we would pay $4 million towards the construction of that building over the next 20 years. And the total project price on a building like this was around 16 or 18 million. So we just funded a small portion of this, but that gave us community use. It allowed for the purchase of an indoor flooring system. And so we actually have a community lease that the community can use for tourism, economic development, parks and rec. There's just a lot of partnerships that we have in here. And so we took it to the voters on November 2017 in the ballot. And again, students assisted along the way with voter registration and education of this project. And I will play a brief video on this project to give you more detail.
Well, Northwest is very proud of our 112-year history. That history is combined and synergized with the City of Maryville. We're so very thankful for the International Town Gown Association and what you all do, but also what you've been able to provide to the City of Maryville and Northwest Missouri State. The last 5 years have been unprecedented in terms of the City of Maryville and Northwest Missouri State University working together, spanning from the 4th Street Improvement Project to projects out at Mazingo Lake Recreation Park, and now with the Northwest Multipurpose Complex and the transient guest tax mode. The Northwest Multipurpose Complex has 4 main goals, and those goals really focus on student success, student engagement, community partnerships, and the overall viability of the athletic environment at Northwest Missouri State University. Even beyond athletics, though, it's health and wellness of the students, health and wellness of our communities. This is a history-making project, as this is the largest single public-private partnership in the region's history and the institution's history. And that's something we're very proud of as we think about the impact of the Northwest Multipurpose Complex.
So that was the Northwest Multipurpose Complex, which was later named after a generous donor, the Hughes family. But Matt, do you have anything before I show kind of the end results of that project?
I would want to mention that the project really started from a vision of an athletic director who was only at Northwest for a few years, but he was and still is a visionary athletic director who's worked in the SEC, the Big 12, all over. A fantastic man. He started envisioning where college athletics was going. So this really started as an athletics program. And we all know about the arms race today in college athletics with the transfer portal and pay for play and those kinds of things. But 12 years ago, the conversation was really about the arms race of facilities. And so we started having a visioning session about what should we do, given our football coaches told us we don't need it to practice, but we absolutely need it to recruit. Our other schools in the MIAA were recruiting based on their facilities, and we couldn't do that. However, we probably didn't have the capacity in our donor base and in our appetite for fees for students to do it just for athletics. So we expanded that conversation. How could this benefit our academics? How could this impact our student recreation? And then ultimately, how could it impact our community? I'll talk a little bit more about the impact in my perspective on the community as well as the campus after Greg kind of gives the next phase. But it really was how can we benefit the most people with the most what's the biggest bang for our buck? And I think it turned out maybe better than we expected. There's a lot of usage of the facility, but it really is about that town gown partnership as well as that across campus partnership for those of us who work in student affairs, athletics, academic affairs. We've all come together to really create that magnificent experience that we actually have now.
Thank you, Matt. This is the Hughes Fieldhouse. The voters approved it in November 2017. Again, wide community support for this project, and I believe the university started construction shortly thereafter, and had the project complete in late 2018. So for the last 7-ish years, this has been an asset for our community for a variety of reasons. You can see this was on the ribbon cutting. Again, you can see the large indoor complex that just has a variety of activities and an indoor flooring system that we can put down for tourism, community uses. And like Matt said, I think we were more than pleasantly surprised with how we can use this building moving forward. You can see we had our local, our Parks and Rec youth soccer programs in there. Off to the right, you can see some trade shows, and I believe that's an employment fair for students. You can see we hit the track meets alone. So the track meets that this can hold, this facility can hold, fill up our hotel rooms and through the entire community for several weekends during a normal season where we would have a lot of vacancy in those hotel spaces. And then off to the right, and finally, again, when we had this partnership and built this project, we didn't know COVID was coming or any of the other things we've experienced since. And so this became a critical asset for our community for COVID vaccinations. And then, Matt, you would provide your thoughts?
Yeah. The thing that we all kind of expected, but I think we were surprised by, was the amount of sales tax revenue that was generated. After the first January, the Fieldhouse was open. One of the hotel operators in our community brought a plate of cookies to the leader that runs the Fieldhouse. And she said at that time they'd never had any more than 2 people stay at the hotel that weekend in the 5 years she'd worked there. And then we had 4 weekends in a row that January where the hotel was full. And so I've stopped by several track meets since that spring of 2019. And every trash can is full of wrappers from restaurants in Maryville, whether it's Domino's Pizza, Subway, Jimmy John's, all the pizza boxes. And so when you bring 700 athletes and their coaches and their families to watch them, hotels get filled up, the restaurants get used, and really we saw a benefit to the taxpayers, not to mention the transient guest tax that Greg mentioned a few minutes ago. That does fund part of the operating budget as we go for 23 years since it opened, but it also helps DeAnn's program downtown and the tourism tax and the tourism that we're trying to draw. So again, this was another example of we knew it would be good, but I think I'm a little surprised at actually how good it is and how much it gets used for both campus regional, and even beyond activities throughout the year.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. And again, DeAnn is excited to use this in numerous tourism aspects for our community moving forward. And again, we're just so thankful for the partnership that made this happen. And again, the provision of our community lease that allows us to just do some really neat things as a community in a facility like this. I am going to speed up because I want to make sure we have time for questions and answers. This is the final project we'll discuss, and this is the downtown pedestrian alleyway. And so what you're looking at here is just a typical alley space, right? And you're down in a rural downtown. The significance of this alley space is it's widely underutilized. It's in horrible condition. There's infrastructure issues like many alleys in rural communities. But this picture is taken from the balcony of the Black Pony Brewery. You can see the building off to the right is called the Pub. There's another local establishment called the Palms down at the end of this alley to the right in that gray building. And so this is a frequent late night corridor for our students in our community going from one destination to another. And so this area had a lot of property owners complaining of storm drainage issues and other things. So instead of just going out and fixing the basic infrastructure, we really took the approach, how do we make this a space that activates downtown that is incredible for our community? And so this is the project we're working on right now. This is the condition of the alleyway. Again, you've seen alleyway conditions probably similar in many communities. But trash trucks and the whole 9 yards really deteriorated those alleys over time. This is the vision that we have now for this alleyway. And this project was actually the recipient of a $726,000 grant from the Department of Economic Development through their Community Revitalization Round 2 grant that they had through their ARPA funding. This is the vision. This is what is going to happen in this alley. We have a grant. We have it budgeted. We actually opened construction bids several weeks ago. So anytime now, the City Council is going to execute a contract on this. And hopefully by the time you get here next year, this will be complete. And I believe it will. So you'll get to experience this space. You see just walls and walls of murals. All property owners are signed up for letting us paint murals on the buildings. This is just a way to activate that space. You've got the Maryville signage. Again, I can't say enough. All of these projects have some sort of unique branding element, right? Creating a sense of place. And so this is going to be on our main street. And you can see that the Y is actually missing. And so the concept was actually taken from Baylor University, where they actually leave out the Y in a lot of their Baylor words around campus. And so that people come up and do the social media, they raise their hands and become the Y. And so we really wanted to incorporate some interactive signage on this. And we believe that's going to be a great addition to our community. And again, we did steal it from Baylor, but I'm a belief case, copy and steal everything. Communities are doing it right. We should follow along. And this was just a great concept. This is what it will look like at night. Again, well-lit destination between that nightlife traffic that we talked about. And some other views here as you move down through the corridor. Again, this project is fully funded and going to be constructed this year. And so we're so excited. A lot of landscaping. Staff's not too excited about the maintenance of the landscaping, but we'll get there because this is going to be a tremendous asset for our community. Again, you can see at night. This is moving on down the corridor. So that other block that you really couldn't see in that photo. We don't have any. This is going to become a family play area. So these are these turf berms that kids can run over and fall and play. And also, you can see the creative on the left. We're separating a business parking lot from the project. So again, creating a safe space. To the right, you can see what is actually a pink ice cream cone building. It's a former Twisties franchise that we were able to work in an economic development partnership to bring that. And so it's an ice cream business that's opened several months throughout the year. And the adjacencies with this project are critical to have that family space, to have the evening space. Again, you can see what this is going to look like at night through the corridor. Funny story before I move on, the engineering on this project actually had a huge play structure right here off to the right. We told them that that's great during the day, but we don't necessarily know if the bar age students would have too much fun on that at night. So we removed that, more of a family area here. DeAnn and Matt, anything to say from that? Because this area is, again, going to be a critical asset for both Northwest Missouri State University and just simply activating our downtown, again, taking an underutilized space and making an asset.
Right. I mean, you can't put a value on what something like this does for, activating an area. Main Street organization talks a lot about placemaking, and bringing these elements of vibrancy. So not only is it great for the community, but then when you think about something like tourism and, people taking pictures and, around these murals and around this placemaking asset that we'll have, kind of do my marketing for me is when, you get on Instagram and use the hashtags and things. So it's hard to really quantify what something like this is going to do, especially in a community that's, 10, 11,000 people that just in these areas, you don't get tremendous amenities like this. So it's going to be I can't wait.
Yeah, I think I agree with DeAnn and Greg, and I would just mention the partnership goes beyond just the project. The fact that we think about that Greg and his team are thinking about how will this impact college students. I am very happy not to get a call from the police chief on a Monday morning because some college student left one of the local establishments and accidentally destroyed the play structure. So recognizing before it's a problem that this isn't what we need to do is brilliant in my opinion. I think the other thing that comes to mind is, in our country, there's a sense of place. College students really think about where they're going to be for the next 4 years. And so having those things, they don't drive by a blighted alley. They drive by and think, man, that's cool. Obviously, just based on census and population, we get more people from larger cities than we do from rural areas. And so they're used to developed spaces. And I think that having that is another way to recruit students here. And we will see students take pictures there before, during, and after their time as a student at Northwest. And so we can't overestimate that sense of place. Some community members may say it's a waste of money, but I am confident that it actually benefits our recruitment, which helps our economic impact here in the city of Maryville and beyond. So these kinds of things really are critical for our long-term viability.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. And yes, the university student, the university relationship is always taken into account for us. And we believe that some of those murals will obviously feature some Northwest material, I would assume, those being in development right now. But we're really excited for this project to kick off. And again, we believe this should be complete by the time the MU Extension Conference is here. Finally, before we move on, I hate ending a webinar without some lessons learned, some takeaways. And so a few things before I start here. You'll see behind me on my fake wall there is ITGA. It's the International Town and Gown Association, and I am actually the incoming president in June for the ITGA. It's a national organization that is positioned to foster partnerships between universities and communities. So universities and the communities in which they reside. So if you do have a university in your community, a community college, I'm going to do a little sales pitch real quick. Go to itga.org and find some information about how this organization can really benefit. But it talks about all the things that we have discussed today and how to bridge that partnership between Northwest Missouri State University and your community. A few things, lessons learned from me personally along these projects is create a core group. When I first got here in Maryville, we had a very active group that met. It was called the University Communities Council, I believe, Matt, if the UCC, and it was a group of people that are well-intentioned, but maybe 30, 35 people that would sit in a room once a quarter and try to tackle problems. Sometimes that group can be too large. So we refocused, and we focused on some core leaders and players that could do things that could start really getting details on 4th Street and how to move that project forward. So that was, I believe, a very good, important part. Sometimes you actually have to shrink the group to get some action in some of those settings. Importance of strategic planning. Both the 4th Street corridor was actually included both in the Maryville Comprehensive Plan and Northwest Strategic Plan, at least the improvements that are needed. So we follow plans here in Maryville, and I believe we do it well. We promote that culture of partnership. We're intentional and communicative with our partners. It's important to recognize that successful partnerships are not always equal. It doesn't have to be a 50-50 win. There may be a project that's more advantageous for the university than the city, but we've clearly demonstrated the reverse, the opposite in partnerships that went the other way as well. So they're not always equal, but they're always important. Take advantage of turnover. Sometimes some of these projects and initiatives get leadership barriers. We didn't have that in our case, but I know a lot of communities, sometimes when those leaders change hands, it's the time to restart that initiative. Capitalize on the momentum. We continue to do it here with that downtown alleyway and several other projects. And I believe the last thing document and celebrate success, but ask the what ifs. Ask the what ifs. We looked at that corridor and we could have done a very minimal version of that project, but why can't Maryville have a 4th Street improved? Why can't Maryville have a regional tourism destination? And why can't Maryville have a downtown pedestrian alley that you would see in a major urban area? So that's all I have. Maybe I'll turn it over for questions.
Well, I'd love to jump in with just a comment, a slight question. My name's David Burton. I work with University of Missouri Extension in Springfield, Missouri, and kind of my niche area is focused on neighbors and neighborhoods. And I'll confess, I joined this today because I wondered if anyone at Northwest knew about Town and Gown International. So I'm just thrilled to hear of your connection with that and your leadership in that organization. You mentioned it a little bit there and touched upon it, but would you say there's one big idea that you've gained from that Town and Gown effort? I notice how you incorporate students and the community and everything, but is there one big lesson from that organization and participation?
That's a great question. I think what I've learned is more just the importance of the partnership, right? And the best practices, because managing communities that have major universities are a little different. There's different dynamics to factor in. And so an organization like ITGA really provides that knowledge network. And so there have been countless times in the past, every project I showed today had some ITGA interaction, and we presented on that to ITGA, those successes. We've got feedback from people around the country who are doing this work in those neighborhoods and realizing what works and what doesn't. So I think ITGA just provides a shared best practices and that knowledge network that you can pick up the phone and call and again case and copy some things and make some things happen in your own community.
And Greg, I would jump into that and point out that the city and the university share the cost of the ITGA membership. Every year, the city pays it and then sends me my 50% invoice because we are in it together. And I think that's an appropriate use of our funds. I think, the person at Missouri State, I think, is Dee Cisco. She's the vice president of student affairs. And I guarantee you she thinks about off-campus students and those experiences. So that communication and that, finding that shared vision that you both have about what you're trying to do is the catalyst. In this case, Greg was a Northwest alum. He could think at that point in his life what a Northwest student was thinking. Now he's like an old guy, so he doesn't think quite the same way as a college student. But that relationship and that connection, the student affairs team at Missouri State thinks about what their students are doing off campus and how they impact the community. I think they'd be a great resource. I've joined as a member. I'm on their listserv, and so I get a lot of emails, and it's very varied. There are emails from the University of Buffalo. There are, emails from University of Chicago. But there's also small town institutions that are asking questions on the listserv. And I find it valuable to just know what other campuses are doing and the amount of infrastructure. It varies widely, but it's all very valid to what we're trying to do here in Maryville as well.
Thank you. That's excellent input. Thank you.
Okay. Do we have any other questions? Because I have a question for DeAnn. Since you've been in place and all of these improvements and re-energizing of downtown, what kind of events now are taking space or place in your downtown area? Because I know you've been working a lot on having events and different activities to draw people down. So can you talk a little bit about what's going on downtown now?
Yeah, I think at last count, if you count all, I believe it's about 20 weeks of our farmers market. I think we hold about 45 events. So we, working with our brick and mortar businesses to do shop hops and Third Thursdays events. And then we have some larger events that are just, to bring, the vibrancy downtown. So we have a lighted Christmas parade during the holidays. As well as we now do a turkey trot over Thanksgiving, and we have, there's a lot of things. And then we bookend our farmers market with a spring into fun and a fall into fun event, which is just kind of a spring and fall festival that's, music and vendors, a lot of kid activities. So bringing those things, to the square, whether the businesses, are open or able to participate, but just having that awareness, not only for, residents and students and, the faculty on campus and, the outliers in, like Greg said, we do bring so many people from outside the community into Maryville. So just having the awareness of what is downtown as they're walking around and going to these events. So yeah, we do a few things.
I thought so. I know that there's a lot of activity that goes on there now. So my next question is for Matt and Greg. I don't know, this hasn't always been in place. I know that the article that you first popped up said town and gown, town versus gown no more. What was it like before? What was some of the challenges of forming this partnership? Or were there challenges, or was it easy? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Definitely let Matt lead on that one.
Yeah, so I can tell you in the last 13 years, it's been easy. I think in the first 3-4 weeks that Greg was on campus, we met and started, or not on campus in Maryville, we started talking about what if. It would not be fair to say it hasn't grown. I think we've strengthened our partnership over the last 13 years. But, one of the things that's been in the back of my mind this entire conversation is you have to have willing partners at the beginning. If somebody is unwilling, you're going to beat your head against the wall. So having the right people at the right place, sometimes it's serendipitous. Sometimes you can create that. But that is that. Having the right person to say, how do I get to yes, truly makes every bit of difference. Greg didn't talk about every adventure we've had together. There have been other things that aren't quite as pleasant with students and unsafe living structures and those kinds of things, but we've worked through them. And every time it's, okay, let me see what we can do. And I think that goes both ways. And so that's been, beautiful is the only word that comes to mind. Before that, there was sometimes we had city managers. I think I've worked with 5 or 6 over the last 20 years, 30 years at Northwest. And sometimes there's the get off my lawn city managers with their fist in the air saying, those darn college kids. I think when we have a city manager who recognizes $600 million in economic impact is nothing to shirk at, and we need to find a way to get to yes, that is invaluable. So it has been hard. We've had different, I don't want to say ages, but experience and tolerance levels with different city managers. And the wrong person in the wrong role will make a very negative impact. And so it's hard. In those cases, we keep kind of walking in and trying to get to yes with the city council, the county commission, the mayor. We find other ways to make those relationships when we have to, but having the right person in the role is critical.
Well, I appreciate that. I will say though as well, same with the university. I think the university has had just a tremendous partnership concept to just how to get to yes first, right? And how to do the things that we need to do. And universities and communities have natural conflict points, neighborhoods, infrastructure, those kind of things. And a community can actually, a big portion of community can perceive those as resource challenges, as resource competition. The university gets all the money. I mean, I've heard that statement. I don't know what it means, but you hear that statement in university communities. And so a lot of our partnership too was educating why that partnership is important to our community and really celebrating those successes when we were able to achieve them. Is talk about how important the Town Gown partnership and what this university means to our community on a variety of levels. It was really critical to get us to where we are.
As you are now down to 2 hours in your position, what was your favorite project in the city of Maryville in your 13 years? That's
a great question. There's a lot of projects I'm proud of, but I really do go back to the 4th Street corridor. I think it was a physical, it created a symbolic and physical asset for our community that symbolizes the partnership, the strong Town Gown partnership. And it does a lot for downtown too. I mean, that welcome to Downtown Maryville on the back of that Northwest Missouri state sign seems so simple that signage, wayfinding signage, things like that can make such an impact, but it does. It's again, those memories, those experiences that for not only students, but faculty, visitors, community members. I think the 4th Street was the real project that one of the ones I'm most proud of for sure.
Wonderful. Well, I'm going to thank you, Greg, DeAnn, and Matt for joining us today. We have to wrap up. We keep these webinars right at 1 hour. I did put a link in the survey, in the chat for a survey. It's not really even to question how we did today. It's give us your feedback because we want to know what else you want to hear in these webinars. So please link on that and go out and fill that out. It takes just a few minutes. And then I also want to announce our next webinar will be April 4th, same Zoom link, same time, 1:30 Central Standard Time for those of you that may be joining us from out of state. We're going to the Southwest region. My colleague Lisa Robinson is going to be hosting collaborators from the Chamber of Commerce and the City of Neosho. They have built an app that the Chamber has now used successfully to link businesses and residents and their community together. And they've used a local, or I guess an in-state platform that is available to other chambers, and they would like to spread that word. So please join us when Lisa hosts that webinar on the 4th of April.